It's time for Recipe of the Day. I have a really fascinating recipe for you today. It is for browning sauce, which I first encountered when I was doing some research on recipes for braised oxtails. It showed up in a couple of the Jamaican recipes, browning or browning sauce. And, being the ridiculously curious person that I am, I went down several rabbit holes to figure out what this was. And it is something that you can buy, but it's also something that you can make. And I just had to try making it because it was such a different technique, different sort of thing than I expected. And it is like transforming my cooking. I love it so much. What it basically is brown sugar that you brown until it's almost burnt. Like, I'm not even kidding. And then you add water to it. And the resulting flavor is, if you just eat it like on its own, kind of like a toasted marshmallow that went too far. And that doesn't sound good, I know. But what you actually need to do to understand how wonderful this is once you've made it, get out a cup of stock, just chicken stock, something normal, warm it up a little bit, and then taste it. And then add just a tiny bit of the browning sauce, give it a stir and taste. And then do that again a few times. And at some point, it's just going to change. And it starts to taste like there's caramelized roasted carrots in your plain grocery store stock. It just is bringing out that caramelized toasted flavor, a little smoky from that like burnt sugar. And it is unbelievable. I have a homemade little jar of it in the fridge, and I've been adding it to things, when they're just missing that something by making a soup or a stew or a sauce. And I'm like, it's just flat. Like the times that maybe you would reach for some soy sauce or Worcestershire or fish sauce. A lot of people do that for that like umami flavor. It's kind of doing that, and I just love it, and I cannot wait for you to try it, and so I'm going to tell you how to make it now. So you're going to use a non-stick skillet for this, because otherwise you're not going to clean this sugar off of there. So you're going to get out a medium non-stick skillet and put it over medium heat, and you're adding a half a cup of packed brown sugar, and you spread it out in the skillet as much as possible. You just let it sit for a minute, and then start stirring it every 10 seconds to go, trying to keep the sugar moving so that it's evenly melting, evenly getting exposed to the heat. Now it's going to start melting after about 3 or 4 minutes. Then you want to just keep scraping the sides of your pan as you go. At this point, you want to go measure yourself some cool or room temperature water, half a cup. You're going to need that on hand. Get that, set it aside, and then just keep stirring that sugar until it's evenly become a liquid. And then it's going to start to bubble and turn dark brown. When it turns that darker color, take the pan off the heat, and now be very careful. Add about half of the water, about a quarter cup. It's going to bubble and sputter and kind of like erupt at you. So make sure you're standing back. Wear an oven mitt even while you're pouring. You really just don't want to get any of this on you, right? Now stir that bit of water as best as you can. It's kind of seizing up with that sugar and the syrup's clumping. Then add in the rest of the water and just keep stirring. You're off the heat, but the residual heat in the pan is going to warm the water up and keep everything melting in together. Now, once it is all smooth and combined, put that skillet back over just low heat and cook and stir continuously until it's just reduced a little bit. You want your spoon to leave trails in the sauce, like good trails that last about a second. Once that's there, you are going to immediately transfer it to another container. You want it to just stop cooking entirely, and the heat from that pan is going to keep it cooking. So immediately transfer it and then let it cool down, and then, totally go and do that stock or broth taste test I was telling you about. It's going to blow your mind. Now, I have really focused on the savory uses for this browning sauce, but I've heard, I have not tried, I'm not much of a baker. I've heard that it's also really great in different cakes and things. It adds kind of that like molassesy note, that kind of flavor. Well, it's going to add like a really toasted marshmallow flavor, right? So definitely you've got to make this. You've got to give it a try. I cannot wait to hear what you think about it. I will put the link to the recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is April 3rd of 2025. And I want to say a big thank you to listeners out there that have left comments recently on Cook the Story and have mentioned this podcast. They've left that 5-star rating that I've been asking you to leave when you like a recipe from one of my websites. That really helps me out, and you guys are doing it. That really blows my mind. It makes me feel really happy. So thank you for listening. Thank you for leaving the comments and the ratings. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.